Hey everyone, this is Fabio and welcome back. Today we're going to do a game discussion video. It's been a while, I know, but for different reasons, it's been a slow month, October. I'm not even ready with the pickups since I don't have much stuff. I've been busy with work and other stuff, and also in terms of gaming, I've been playing only one game, and it took forever to beat it. And the game is, let's just get out of the way, it's Obscure: The Aftermath on PSP. The sequel of the first Obscure that I think was released on PS2, and I didn't play that game. It's one thing I want to mention immediately before getting into the discussion about this game. And it's interesting that I didn't plan to play a survival horror game on October, like Halloween, and even more coincidentally, I finished this game the 31st, so on Halloween night. That wasn't the plan, even though it sounds like it, but it wasn't because I don't care for Halloween. I when I grew up, Halloween was not a thing. We didn't celebrate. Nowadays, kids in Italy do, but for when I was a kid, when I grew up and where I grew up, Halloween was not important. But apart from that, Obscure: The Aftermath. Um, well, that's really loud, like always. The thing with this game, as I said, it took me a long time to complete it. Not because it was difficult, but simply because it didn't grab me um, as much as I wanted, in a way. Because the story wasn't what I wanted from this game. The reason why I play this, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this is a bad game, because personally I think it's okay, but it's nothing special. And I was very curious about trying a survival horror game on the PSP, because I love survival horror as a genre, especially back in the day. Nowadays, on the other hand, it's been a while since I've played survival horror. I've been focused mainly on various kinds of RPGs, some more action-oriented game, or platformers. And it's been a long time since I played, like from start to finish, a good old survival horror. And I love those games. Like on the PS1, that's when I started, like many others, I suppose. Survival horrors were my thing. I mean, I played a lot of them. But progressively, I think the genre has changed a bit, and it's nothing wrong with it, of course. But the classic example is the Resident Evil series. Look at how it evolved, for better and for worse at the same time. It depends. I haven't played a Resident Evil game since Resident Evil 4, honestly. I haven't played 5 and 6, so I can't really tell. And I'm not really into Silent Hill, but simply because I never had the chance to play that series. I have actually Silent Hill Origins on the PSP, and sometimes I'm gonna play it. But let's move to Obscure: The Aftermath, because as I said, this is the sequel of a game on PS2 that I don't own and I haven't played. So maybe that's the reason why it didn't grab me so much, because I haven't played the first part of the story. But at the same time, from what I understand, playing this one, maybe it's not absolutely strictly necessary playing both of them. I don't know, but I kind of understood the story. Not it's that complicated, but even without playing the first one, just read some synopsis of the first game, I think it's fine. But what's the story of Obscure: The Aftermath? Basically, the best way to describe it, I think it's a college movie horror slasher kind of game. Because you take control of a group of college students, starting during a party. They smell some flowers or something like that. It's really that was fun at the beginning. Actually, I have to say that's a sort of college party situation when one of the main characters started smelling this flower and start to hallucinate, and all of a sudden this nightmare situation starts when other people turn into monsters. You have to survive, find your other friends, and try to understand what's going on, save your buddies, and all this kind of stuff. But I don't know. That's my first pet peeves in a way with the story. Um, because honestly, it was really not even like in a way B movie sort of kind of stuff like Resident Evil, but C or D movie. I mean, it was kind of a ridiculous story to me, at least. And personally, I would have preferred if it's kind of not really a spoiler, but if the whole thing would have been like was just as it seems it started like an hallucination, like the main characters, because there are 6 or 7 or 8 or something that I don't even remember very well, but um, the real important ones are actually two, which who are actually were the main characters in the first game. So there are 2 returning characters and a bunch of new characters. And as I said, like when this character smells the flower, I would have preferred if this whole thing would have been just an hallucination. Nothing was real, like the other students turning into monsters and those kind of things. I would have preferred if it was more of like a psychological horror rather than this kind of horror thing with monsters and stuff like that. That was kind of a big stretch for me. But personally, as I said, if at the end of the game they will explain that the whole thing was a sort of drug cause hallucination, that I think would have been better, at least, or more original at least. That it was all a dream caused by these weird flowers. Because there was also a thing that I actually liked in the story, and that there is this sort of weird, deformed guy who follows the main characters and like grab them sometimes, and you have to save them. And there is this sort of Leatherface kind of character with a chainsaw, who's running around running around the campus and the neighbor areas, and that those parts are more interesting in a way because it follows a kind of different thing, like more of a slasher rather than zombie monster kind of movie. And like while you're looking around this empty house, for example, with like the creepy, there was like the only really creepy moment of the game, like when you found his bedroom when he was a child with his toys, photographs, this really weird entries in his diary, like "Mommy didn't love me," I killed my mommy, now she's smiling. All this really creepy stuff with this weird music in the background. That was really cool actually, and also like the way it resolves. It was really silly, but also a lot of fun. Like I just really small spoiler, the a chainsaw duel with this guy. That was awesome actually. I really liked that. And then like the final part of the game after this duel is I didn't like it very much because again it was all focused on the monsters and how to exploit this monster to reach the perfection of humanity or stuff like that. I was like, really, come on, guys. I read and saw this kind of plots and stuff from years now. It's not interesting anymore. But as I said, if the story how it was not that interesting, it had potential for me, and if they developed certain aspect better, it would have been a better game, I think. Because like of course it didn't scare me at all. Like I don't play survival horror games to be scared because most of the time they don't, for many reasons. Even with a horror movie, I don't get really scared because I know that those are not realistic situations. It's a bit weird. I'm not trying to say like I'm a very brave. I mean, I get scared like normal people, of course, but I get scared by more realistic things, not by monsters, zombies. Like those kind of things make me laugh most of the time. And this was kind of the same. These ridiculous-looking monsters running around, shooting spiders at you and stuff like that. It was like, okay, you can beat them with a baseball or a hockey club. Um, yeah. But then when you have this really weird guy follow you around and trying to kill you with a chainsaw. It's not scary, of course, but it's more interesting, I say, as for an horror kind of situation, like this sort of Leatherface wannabe kidnapping the members of your group. And when like there is this weird music in the background in this house, or when you can see him in the background running around, it's like, oh shit, he's here. But again, not scary at all. And also because I think it was playing on a PSP with a small screen, it was not that intimidating. Maybe playing this, because I think this game was released as well on PS2 and PC. Maybe on a big screen it's a bit more scary. It's a big war, because it's not a scary game, I think. But maybe creepy. I don't know. As I said, there was only one moment that I was actually thinking this is kind of creepy. And it was like the bedroom of the child in the house. But other than that, and it's not something, again, it's not something completely new to me, like horror movies or stuff like that. You saw certain things, so like this, like the really problematic child and with the twisted past, or healthy problem, and he gets like was alone, he had this troubled childhood, he had psychic problems. I mean, it's nothing new. I think it's still effective in a way. I mean, it's not that different from a Michael Myers kind of character again. So yeah, you can say it's a sort of mix between Leatherface and Michael Myers. Maybe it's a good combination. So scare factor, not really. But as I said, I don't really count, because I don't play this game to get scared. I just like these kind of adventures, and is also part of the whole experience of a survival horror. I think are the controllers, of course, the gameplay. It's extremely important, because to me the best way to enjoy survival horror is of course with the tame controls, something that this game doesn't have. Because of course with the Vita you play with the stick, with the PSP you play with the stick, and it offers a sort of Resident Evil 4, those kind of experience, not tanky at all. And the tame controls, I think, are essential in a survival horror, because they add an element of, rather than fear, of panic. Because in difficult situation you don't have full control over your character, so the tension grows up in those kind of situation. So it's more effective with more fluid control. Like, I don't know, like played like a Mass Effect or those kind of games that you can move and dodge easily, and it's not the same thing. I mean, it controls better, of course. I mean, it's less wonky, but that's not the point. The point is the less the better with controllers in survival horror, and this is no exception. But for the rest, it was okay. I mean, other than having kind of fluid controllers, like the cameras were okay most of the time. It didn't have like the fixed camera like a Resident Evil game. It was like following you around, maybe sometimes some weird angles, which it's not bad. Kind of something that you saw in Silent Hill games, for example. I remember in Silent Hill 1 the camera goes all crazy. It's not like that and not as effective, but it's that kind of visuals, I think. If I remember, like Silent Hill or other games now I can think of. And one thing that I liked it, but was not as prominent, was the soundtrack, because they, I think, really tried with creating a good atmosphere with the music. But for the most part, it's interesting that there was no sound or music in certain situations, while in certain places there was music, and it was kind of good, I think. Like there was one that was like mainly like voices, like a choir or something, and that was kind of in the way. I think it was not as effective as they hoped. But as I said, the most creepy to me was again in that single room in the mansion, in that house. Like, there was this room with a really atmospheric music, and that was the only occasion I said this is kind of creepy. And while like I remember like the opening music, and then like the in a way, it's the main theme of the game. It's a sort of pop song. So I was like, okay, this is not the place for a song like this, but it fits very well. I think the idea of this sort of college B horror movie kind of thing. I mean, for that, it fits the purpose, but yeah, it's not what I really want from a survival horror. So one thing that I really like, I was almost forgetting, speaking about controllers and stuff like that, it's the thing that you have so many different characters, but there is a reason for that, is that each character has its own special ability in a way. Basically, all of them can use the same weapons. There are like shotgun, gun, crossbow, a flare gun, a stun gun, all this kind of stuff. Clubs of any kind, like baseball, hockey stick, the old like blunt weapons. And however, one of the greatest thing of the game is that each character has special ability. As I said, for example, there is one who is actually, for example, specialized in agility kind of stuff. He can like climb some walls, jump from one wall to the other, but like just using his hands, something like that. Another one, she's good with like for puzzles, for example, she's used at decipher stuff. Another one is good with computers. A couple of those are like stronger, so they can move heavy objects. One is skill in picking locks. So that was very useful. So there was a bit of strategy in this game, because during the game you can play as two characters at a time, and so you have to choose which one you think might be the most appropriate. So for example, you decide to go with the one good at decipher and one the agile one, but then you got into a situation when you need, for example, the stronger one to move an object, and so on. So that it's a really good thing that they did in this game, I think. I really like that. It's probably, I think, its best feature. But as I said, it added this element of strategy that it's not that common in a survival horror game, because you think in Resident Evil, for example, your character can do everything, can climb on walls, can move big boxes and stuff like that. In this, you have to choose carefully your character, because like if you don't, you have to go all the way back and change characters. But luckily enough, there is no respawn in this game, so the enemies do not return, and because sometimes in certain game they do, and that's a problem, because ammunition is very scarce in this game, like all survival horror. So for the most part, I just used the stun gun with one character and like the baseball club or whatever with the other to save ammos for stronger enemies or bosses, like you usually do in a good survival horror, or at least you try to save as much ammo as you can. For that also was good. There were not as many enemies as in other games, like in I don't know, in a Resident Evil 4, or where you face as like an entire like masses of zombies or stuff like that. So overall, Obscure the Aftermath, it's not a masterpiece, of course, but the PSP, it's not famous for its survival horror library. So I think if you like the genre, you should give it a shot. It's okay. I cannot say it's a good game, because good it's something else, but it's not bad either. It's a nice game. It's not very long. It's just it took me kind of a long time to beat it, simply because it didn't. I didn't have a drive to keep going and keep playing. I was like, oh my god, I have to play Obscure. I was like, should I play Obscure? No, let's just watch a video on YouTube. Then sometimes I have to play this game because I want to play something else, and I want to finish this, because it's not very hard, it's not very long, and there's zero replay value. Once you finish, you're done. You don't have any reason to play it again. There are no costumes, there are no bonuses, there's no secret weapons, nothing like that. So I think also that you can find this for a reasonable price, because it's not an RPG or stuff like that. So if I remember, I paid less than £10 for this, which is really good for a PSP game, because If you look at some RPGs on the PSP, they're insanely expensive, criminally expensive, I have to say. So overall, Obscure, it's a decent game for the PSP. Not its best, of course, but as I said, the PSP it's not the best console for survival horror. To me, the golden age of this genre will always be the PS1. But for trying something different and trying to coming back to this genre that I used to love a lot, and I still do. I really like a good survival horror here and there. We'll see if Silent Hill Origin will do better. It's actually not a bad pick. Again, nothing special. If you find it for cheap, if you like survival horror, give it a shot because it's not horrible, but it's not actually that bad. There are good elements. The story, as I said, it's kind of ridiculous. Nothing special, nothing original, but it's a survival horror video game that I don't know. I mean, sometimes they run out of ideas. Like as I said, the monster thing they could avoid that, but whatever. So that's it. There's nothing much I can say. Nothing more I can say about it because it's not even a big game. So you can enjoy this, however. I'd say, as I said, if you want to try it, if it's not expensive, if you are into survival horror, give it a shot. You might like it because, as I said, there are interesting things in this. It's not a disaster, of course. So there it is. My discussion on Obscure: The Aftermath. Decent survival horror on the PSP, nothing special, but now I can finally move to games I want to play more, some RPGs, and that's it. So guys, thanks so much for watching, like always. I'll see you next time. Take care.